everyone. We are here with our NBA betting experts to break down the upcoming NBA championship series between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. To my left, we have David Lieberman.
Howdy.
And to my right, we have Joe Chen.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Okay, guys, first and foremost, did anyone expect this matchup heading into the playoffs?
Well, I think most people expected the Celtics to be here. Maybe not quite with such an easy path to the finals, but that was obviously kind of expected. But the Mavericks, I guess they were kind of a wild card coming into the playoffs. I think we talked about them being a lot better after the trade deadline. And so I don't think they were expected to be here, but I'm not overly surprised either.
Right.
Yeah, I think for the Celtics side, you kind of expected it even if most teams are healthy. They're the best team in the weaker conference. I did guess the Denver Nuggets to get there. They didn't. They were kind of locked in horns with, a team that just perfectly countered everything that they did. As for the Dallas Mavericks making it, I would say very unexpected. I think I picked against them in every round. So, good for them for making it.
Right. We've got a lot of interesting storylines that we'll get into with this series, and we'll break them all down. But first, let's jump into a series preview. Like we mentioned, the Celtics have had a historic season. No one's really surprised to see them there. The Mavs getting hot after the trade deadline. Where do the odds stand as of now?
The Celtics are, I think we have them at minus 210 right now to win the series. So it's good. It's a respectful line, and obviously showing respect for the Celtics season and how good they are. But I think the price might be a little bit lower than maybe some expected. As on paper, the Celtics are not a much better team, but just a very dominant team. And I think the betting action has kind of driven down the Mavericks price a little bit. But overall, I think the sharps are backing the Celtics and the public is backing the Mavericks so far.
That makes sense to me.
I think that makes a lot of sense, too, if you kind of just pay attention to what's going on in media, like, say, Reddit. A lot of people like the Mavericks' chances, and it makes a lot of sense. They beat a lot of good teams. They beat Minnesota, who beat Denver, who I thought was the best team coming out the West. However, I do think the sharp betting action makes a lot of sense. I think matchup-wise, this is a much more different team from Minnesota.
Totally.
I love their 5-out against what the Mavericks kind of do with their big men, just kind of having them sit in the paint. They're just helping off Gobert, just blocking every shot that was coming in their way. You can't really do that against 5-out. So I think it makes a lot of sense where the line is at.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this Celtics easy playoff path. The Celtics dominated just about every opponent they played in the regular season and postseason. They were the only team to finish the regular season with more than 60 wins. They went on to win every playoff series in 5 games or fewer, including sweeping the Pacers. Even with these stats, the narrative seems to be that the Celtics had the easiest path to the playoffs. The East is weak. They're overrated. Is this a fair point, or is it a little misguided?
I think you can separate the fact that they had an easier path than expected and not say it's really is a detriment to how good they played. The Celtics obviously were the best team coming into the playoffs, and they took care of business, and that's what they needed to do. They didn't beat themselves. But obviously every team they played had a star who was either injured or out. And in the last series specifically against the Pacers, I think that series would have been really close if Halliburton was healthy. And it was close. The games were close even without Halliburton. So I think they kind of got a little bit of a scare with the Pacers. Obviously the series wasn't long, but I think the fact that they didn't have to go up against each team's best roster, best effort, they're not going to escape the narrative that it was an easier path than the Mavericks got to the finals.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what David said. It's a cakewalk, I think, in my personal opinion. Like these teams,
right in there.
Yeah, these teams weren't already favorites, and then now they lose their best few players. Like the Cavs lost Mitchell, Jared Allen, Jimmy Butler, Rozier's out, and then obviously Halliburton was out. I think if you want to craft. If any team went to the playoffs and they were like, we're going to face these 3 teams going to the finals, they would they would like give up an arm and leg for a path like that. But they took care of business. I think they had like almost a plus 11 net rating. 12-2 going into the finals. So like, what more can you really expect? They do need to play better against Dallas, but yeah, it's a pretty easy path compared to what Dallas had to go through. They went through like an absolute war path just to get to the finals.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So Boston has defeated the Mavs twice already this season, once by 9 points before the trade deadline and then by 28. Do we think this has any significance as we talk about this upcoming series?
Short answer, no.
Okay.
The Mavericks are... I don't even remember that game that they lost by 28. I don't know if there was any sort of injuries or people out or whatever. But no, the Mavericks are a different team right now than when they played the Celtics. Even after the trade deadline, they probably weren't fully gelled or comfortable with each other, and now they're just playing. The chemistry's good. Just everything's clicking right now, and so I wouldn't put any stock into the two regular season matchups personally.
I would like to take the results out of, because they did kind of beat them. They did beat them pretty handily in both games. However, I think what was more important was kind of the process in which the Celtics kind of went through and how they guarded Luka. Right? So I'll kind of like talk quickly about that Minnesota series where they kind of just had Gobert drop against the Luka Doncic and Lively pick and roll. And I don't think any drop center big can ever guard like that kind of action, because he has to, like, Gobert had to be 20 feet out to contest that Luka step back, or he had to be right there perfectly sitting against Lively to like deter him from getting that lob off. I don't know anyone who can guard that. However, the Celtics, they do something kind of different, right? They put Tatum on Lively. They just switch that action, and then they have Porzingis on, say, Washington or a weaker shooter in this case. And by doing that, you kind of negate that, I guess, that lob game that they have, because instead of a switch, you throw it to Lively in the post. It's just not as effective, right? And I think what they did during that March game was that they ran pick and roll with PJ Washington. And it just looked a lot worse when Washington wasn't shooting wide open corner threes. It was from the wing with a big closing out. It's just a little different. And then also you had Washington rolling to the rim. Okay, he is pretty tall. He is pretty athletic. He's not Derek Lively, who can catch the ball at the top of the square and dunk it, right? And on top of that, you have Lively, instead of Lively rolling to the basket and three shooters spacing out, it's PJ Washington rolling to the basket and Lively kind of clogging the lane. So I think because the Celtics can kind of take away their fastball, which is a diving big, and Luka kind of going downhill, because they can kind of, may not take it away, but they can kind of like put a cork in it. It gives them a much bigger advantage than, say, a team like Minnesota. Minnesota gave up 121 offensive rating against Dallas. It's just not going to look like that. I think the Celtics guard a little closer to a team like, say, the Thunder with their 5-out and their switchable defenders, and they held Dallas to 113. I think it's going to be closer to that.
I like it. I like the breakdown. Okay, now let's get into some of the biggest storylines of the series, and there is no better place to start than Kyrie versus Boston. I'm going to give a quick summary of Kyrie versus Boston drama. Are you guys ready?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to get into my my storytelling. Okay. Remember that time that Kyrie Irving was all set to be Boston's next basketball hero, promising fans in 2018 at TD Garden that he'd re-sign with the Celtics. Fast forward to February 2019, when asked about coming back, he essentially said, "I don't owe anybody shit." Very classic. Of course, after that season, Kyrie peaced out and joined Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets. Cue the drama. Whenever he played Boston, it was like watching a reality television show. Fans booing, Kyrie flipping the bird, just your typical wholesome sportsmanship. But then Kyrie did the unthinkable. He stomped on Lucky the Leprechaun, the Celtics' beloved logo, like he was squishing a bug. Celtics fans lost their minds, Kyrie sucks chants filled the stadium, and it was pretty much chaos. And as if the saga wasn't enough, Kyrie's Brooklyn stint had its own drama that we won't get into. Eventually, he got traded to Dallas, and now he's set to face the Celtics in the 2024 NBA Finals, proving that if basketball were a soap opera, Kyrie would be the star. Guys, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Do we think this saga will continue into the series?
Yes. I mean, I mean, what more is there to say? I think maybe the drama has died down a little bit since the peak of it. There's been a few years and some, I don't know, maybe mended fences. I don't know, but I think obviously the fact that we're getting this matchup is going to be awesome.
Right.
Kyrie back to Boston in the finals. We'll see. We'll see how Boston reacts, and we'll see how Kyrie reacts, and now Kyrie has another villain next to him in Luka, who loves being the hated villain of every opposing team's arena. So
That's a good point.
we'll see. I mean, maybe we'll see. Maybe Kyrie will pass that torch to Luka and try to let him take the brunt of it. I don't know.
To be fair, he did come out to the media and say he's a changed person. That wasn't a good reflection of him. But Boston fans can really get to you. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good highlight of what went on. I was very heartbroken when he did leave Boston. But yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely mellowed out a lot. And it looks like he has, there hasn't been a lot of drama surrounding his name. And I think I don't know if Boston will ever forgive him based on what you said. There's a lot of mutual back and forth. You never know what he's hearing on the court, what kind of things people are saying that's causing him to, give them the bird.
Absolutely.
So it's probably a two-way street if I had to guess. And at the end of the day, he can choose where he wants to go. So he ended up choosing to go to the Nets. Fine. Yeah.
I think it was the best decision, but I think Boston fans will definitely play into this.
Yeah, they'll try. But I don't know if Kyrie will play into it as much as he
I don't
did
think
in the
he
past.
should. I think that's what ignited it, really.
Yeah.
If you have someone playing back, I mean, of course.
Yeah.
But, I don't think the Mavs would like that either. But, I mean, on a way less dramatic note, we have the Porzingis, also homecoming. He was traded by Dallas in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do we think that this will have any added motivation?
No, I mean, there's always going to be the against your former team storyline, and it'll be fun to watch. Obviously, there wasn't as much bad blood between Porzingis and the Mavericks at the end. So, but yeah, I mean, it's another fun storyline to add it to the pile of this final series, and we'll see. Well, hopefully he's healthy. So, I mean, that's kind of first and foremost.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a huge reason why Porzingis didn't really fit on that team was because you have to play a certain way around Luka. They kind of just had him pick and pop, even though he's very good curling off screens. He's pretty good isolating against smaller guards. He just wasn't maximized, I think, in his eyes in Dallas. So that's kind of why it didn't really work out. Obviously, not as much drama between Dallas and Kristaps, if I had to guess. And I think having any time a team is getting their second or third best player back, you would welcome it. So Porzingis would be a huge addition for the Celtics. They will love his rim protection, and they'll definitely love his ability to just maintain that 5-out ecosystem against Dallas.
Yeah, and speaking of Kyrie and Porzingis, I'm looking at this Revenge Games quick pick on the app. I love it. Let's get into some superstar duos. Who is a better duo, Tatum and Brown or Kyrie and Luka?
I would take Kyrie and Luka on my team if I had to pick. And also, I would probably bet on them in the sense that I think I can trust them maybe a little bit more in the closing minutes of a game. And when the stars are bright, I would pick Kyrie and Luka. Kyrie's got a little bit more experience than all the other three, and then Luka's just a superstar in every sense of the word. And as good, Tatum and Brown are great. It's unfortunate that the narrative is like, oh, these guys are better than them, because they're also one of the best duos maybe ever. So it's kind of hard to go up against Luka and anybody. And then when you throw in Kyrie's experience and just everything he does, I would probably take Luka and Kyrie.
Right.
Yeah, I got Luka and Kyrie too. I think just their nuclear offensive capabilities really, really hard to kind of offset that. I will say an element that Tatum and Brown have that, say, Kyrie and Luka have to a lesser degree is kind of the defense, obviously. Their versatility.
Definitely.
Yeah, just being able to fit into so many different schemes. You can plug and play them into good teams, bad teams, and they still be pretty good in most scenarios. You kind of have to play through Luka. You kind of have to play through Kyrie, although to a lesser degree. I like his off-ball element, his catch and shoot, his ability to drive and kick as well. Very, very helpful addition to the Mavericks offense. But I think just from a talent play perspective, you just have to go with the Dallas duo.
I think that's pretty fair. Let's get into an MVP preview. Tatum and Luka are unsurprisingly clear favorites, but can you break it down for us?
Yeah, so with Luka, it's interesting because it's like, if you think the Mavericks are going to win the series, will you just bet Luka to win MVP at a slightly better price? That's probably what I would do. So his odds are just basically a notch higher than what the Mavericks are to win the series. There's been a lot of betting on Kyrie, though. So he's probably been the most popular choice in the MVP betting. And so I guess if you think the Mavericks are going to win the series and then Kyrie goes nuclear against his old team and just all the storylines around it, maybe he gets MVP votes there. But I think it comes down to Tatum or Luka personally. Obviously, that's the chalk, but I can't see too many like long shots pulling it off like in some past years. Porzingis probably won't play enough. He's been popular choice too, but I just can't see them giving him the minutes he would need to put up the numbers. And Brown is kind of a dark horse just because he had just won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
Right.
But then people are like, well, is there voter fatigue already? Are they going to give it to him for the finals as well when it was kind of a 50-50 toss-up between him and Tatum? So I think Brown could win it, but then maybe people just don't want to give it to him again, right after.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Luka pick makes a lot of sense, although I think part of it could be dictated by how Boston chooses to defend him. Usually they just switch on him, so you don't really take him out of what he usually does. He's just going to step back every time. Drive to the rim, do his thing. But if they double team him, then that could, maybe that could swing things in Irvin's favor. They double team him past half court. He has to pass it, and then they play 4-on-3. He doesn't get like a rebound, an assist, or points. Right? So I think if they choose to blitz him over and over again, you can maybe see it start to shift towards Kyrie. Although Luka being the overwhelming favorite for the Mavericks makes a lot of sense. For the Celtics, it just makes sense to give it to Tatum, assuming he plays well.
Right.
Like, he probably deserved it during the Eastern Conference Finals, too. So, yeah, Tatum, Luka, sorry for the most lukewarm take.
No, it makes sense. Okay, can you guys finish this sentence for me? Jason Tatum is the blank best player in the NBA.
I was going over this question in my head, and I was like, do I just pick a random number that's in the ballpark and just say it? And then someone comes after me like, well, what are the 7 players better than Tatum? So I'm going to pick 8th, and I'm not sure if I would back that up if someone really hammered me on it. But I think there's like 5 or 6 players that you could basically say are better than Tatum, but then he's just right there behind them. So I could probably go with a higher number, a lower number, but he's around that ballpark of like the next tier of superstars, and he's just a great player, offense, defense, and we'll just see if he can kind of finally get over the hump of the finals, win the ring, and kind of cement himself in that tier of superstars.
Totally.
Yeah, actually, I'm remarkably close to you. I think I pocketed him around like the 7 to 10, 7 to 9 range. Great player, don't get me wrong, but I'm not the highest on his offense. He actually hasn't been amazing this playoffs. So I think he's below league efficiency in terms of relative true shooting. And his creation has kind of jumped up, which is a very healthy sign. But if he's your best offensive player, I think it's not ideal, right? But then but he also contributes to that whole 5-out shell that they have going on. So, him being there also allows the driving lanes to be open. So it allows Derek White to do his thing, it allows Drew Holiday to post up, allows Porzingis to isolate. So he has a bigger communal effect. Obviously a great defender too. So I think he's a pretty good offensive player and then a very good defensive player as well. So I think 7 to 9 kind of slots him pretty well.
All right. Okay, let's talk about the betting action we're seeing at Caesars Sportsbook ahead of tip-off. What betting action are we seeing, and is there any interesting markets we should keep an eye on?
Obviously, like I said earlier, the Mavericks are the kind of the public choice, so we're taking a little bit more money on them. It just makes sense. People want to back the underdog and don't want to lay the price. But I think outside of that, it's been a lot of the sharper bettors are taking like Celtics. the series handicap to win, win in 6, win in 5, win, stuff like that, where there's probably a little bit of value. And I personally think the series goes the distance, at least 6. I think it goes 7. I think that's just the best for everyone involved.
Right.
And so I'm hoping for it, going to manifest it. But yeah, the betting's been pretty consistent. The sharper bettors on the Celtics, any market relating to that, and the public on the Mavericks.
Heading into the season, were there a lot of futures bets on the Celtics?
Obviously there were, but since their price was so low, we never really worried about it. So
Right.
Yeah, they've been popular all season, but never got out of hand or anything. They weren't overwhelmingly bet. So they just kind of were what they were, and everybody expected them to probably be there at the end, and the price reflected that the whole season. As far as interesting markets, we do have a lot of series-long player props. So a couple that we put up were Derek White to get a block in every single game of the finals. I think we have that at 6-1, and then Luka Doncic to get a triple-double in every game of the series, which is a little bit longer shot. I think it's 25-1. But things like that, I think the public bettors that don't necessarily want to bet the series price only, they want to bet some of these fun player props and stuff like that. Sort of like the Super Bowl.
Nice. Where do you guys think that this series will rank in past series? It seems like it's a pretty somewhat even matchup. Could go either way. Do you think this will be a one for the books, one for the ages?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the storylines, the teams are both very good. They're coming in, Mavericks are coming in hot. Celtics are one of the best teams, maybe ever. They're up there. They're not the best. But
Yeah.
it's just, on paper, it feels like it's going to be a classic. And I think that's probably what everyone's hoping for.
Right.
Yeah, I think with all the storylines and I guess the Mavericks standings kind of betraying how good they really are, it will be probably a lot closer talent-wise, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it has potential to be a pretty good series for sure.
Right. Awesome. Okay, guys, let's get into some predictions. What do you guys think? Who's taking the title? Celtics, Mavs. And how many games do you think this is going to go to? I already know you think it's going to go to 7.
Yeah. I've been going back and forth. I think my gut tells me, or my head tells me the Celtics, probably 6 or 7. My gut tells me Mavericks in 7. So I'm just going to go Mavericks in 7. I want to see that game 7. I want to see Luka, Kyrie, Tatum. Just the drama around it would just be too good and too palpable for. I think it just needs to happen, and so that's what I think happens. And I'm just going to go Mavericks because I've been kind of talking up the Luka and Kyrie over Tatum and Brown. So if I think the two superstars are a better duo, then I'll take them in the finals as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to go the other way. I think that the Celtics, being that they're probably the better team, and they have, I think strategically they just match up pretty well personnel-wise as well. I kind of have to just go with Celtics in 6 or 5, something like that. Yeah, but I will say I'm 0-3 on the Mavericks so far. So...
Oh, no.
Yeah. So maybe, Boston's probably scared that I'm picking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mushed them.
Yeah. Kyrie has had a pretty horrible record against Boston since leaving. So wonder if that will come into play. Something we haven't talked about, coaching. Any advantage coaching-wise to these two teams?
Yeah, I think coming into the playoffs, nobody was really rating Jason Kidd very highly. And then as the playoffs have gone on, I've been actually really impressed with his adjustments and his coaching schemes. And I think Kidd is now probably got the leg up, a serious leg up over Mazzulla, who I think there's just questions around his coaching ability. He's a good numbers guy, and he's got that for him. But as far as the X's and O's and in-game adjustments, I don't think he's really had to prove or gotten the chance to really prove his worth in his short term. But coming to the season, I wouldn't have been like Jason Kidd. Oh, he's got a huge advantage over anyone. But it's something to talk about, I guess, going into the series. That I think Kidd is proven he's a really good head coach.
Okay, Joe, do you agree?
Yeah, mostly. I think Jason Kidd, what he's really been crushing has been the challenges, right? I think he's won 8 straight challenges or something like that. Like, he's just been going crazy with it. So, I mean, that just gets you a few extra possessions, a few extra points a game. And then in a series as close as them and the Thunder, where they scored the same number of points, like, that actually swings it for you in a pretty big way, especially since most of those games were close, right? So good on him for that. I think a lot of the stuff that he has done during the series made a lot of sense. You know, just having another big kind of end of paint, just sealing off their driving lanes. But then again, I don't think a lot of these other teams had great adjustments for that. Like the Clippers, they have to play Zubats. The Timberwolves, they have to play Gobert. So that's the pretty obvious kind of move to make. On the other side with Missoula, I think a lot of the credit goes towards Brad Stevens for constructing this team. And I kind of give him more credit in how he's able to construct this team with so many great shooters, because it's not just people who have good percentages who should take 2 threes a game. If you let them shoot 20 threes a game, all of them will do it. Right. So it's kind of different from a team like OKC, where some of these players are solid shooters, but they take like 2 threes a game. And I think just a lot of the criticism has been that the Celtics offense is kind of simplistic. Like, they would just straight up ISO, but that's also kind of how they play. They just want to create an advantage, and they want to get into their driving kick. And I think that's where I give Missoula the credit, where, okay, if they can just force a double team, or they can get a wide open drive and kind of force the defense to react, if they get that first domino to fall, they're really, really good at just moving the ball and getting the 3 or the dunk, right? So that's where I give Missoula a lot of credit.
I like it. Where do you guys think this series, like, what do you think this series relies on for each team? Like, if this team does this, they'll win. If this team does this, they'll win.
Oh, I kind of wanted to touch on this earlier, but obviously
Yeah.
I think a big X factor is Porzingis and his health and how he fits back into the offense and the flow right away. So I think we'll kind of know early on in game 1, is he back? Is he healthy? Will the offense flow fine, for them? So it's almost like if they win game 1, I can't really see them losing the series, because it probably means Porzingis played fine. It probably means he's healthy. If they lose game 1 and Porzingis might, they're easing him back in and it's just not working, the offense looks a little weird, then it's up for grabs. But I think the ultimate X factor will be how maybe just how Dallas defends that Boston offense, and that, like you said, 5 out. If Porzingis is hitting shots, if Celtics are hitting shots, it's hard to say that any team will beat them if they're playing at their best. So that's kind of what it boils down to. And then if you get a Porzingis who's not quite 100% and the offense is not clicking, then at that point all bets are off, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I'll focus on the Mavericks more so. I think that the continued hot shooting of Derek Jones and PJ Washington will be huge. If they can keep knocking down their shots, like PJ Washington, he had like 17 points a game against OKC. They really needed that to get over the hump against them. And can he maintain that? Is it going to look a little different now that they're not going to leave him wide open, just let him shoot it? Because the Celtics, they just move a lot quicker on a perimeter. They're probably just not going to let him space out there. They're going to use him as a roll man maybe. So it's probably going to look a little different from there. They need that hot shooting because they need that spacing. On the other hand, I think Kyrie Irving and his defense will be huge as well, because he's the very clear, obvious weak point within that starting lineup, I think, just because everyone in that lineup is huge outside of him. And if they take advantage of him in the post, can he kind of force some long jumpers? Can he kind of force a little tougher shots just to prevent that driving kick game from going for Boston? Because if they can just keep exploiting one weakness, they can kind of get into the juice of their offense. So his defense will be really important.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch.
Me too.
I think this, like you said, I think it will be one of the best series we've seen in a while. So thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.